In this video, I'm going to run through what AAA is with respect to CCH OneClick. So firstly, what is AAA? AAA stands for Authentication and Authorization. It provides an enhanced level of security at the point of login into CCH OneClick. One of those options is multi-factor authentication, which can be optionally set at a practice level to be mandatory for all users, or an individual user can decide whether they want to use multi-factor authentication or not. Multi-factor authentication is where, as well as a username and password at the login screen, the user is also prompted to enter a code that is sent to them via an external device. With AAA, you also have the option of setting a mandatory change of password for all OneClick users. This can be set to any number of days and is set up by us at Walters Kluwer at your request. If AAA is enabled for your CCH OneClick domain, users will not be able to reuse recently used passwords. Users can also change their own passwords, and I will demonstrate this in the video. So the agenda for the next few minutes of this video is I am going to demonstrate logging in and out of CCH OneClick using various scenarios. Firstly, I'm going to look at the login process when AAA isn't activated for a OneClick domain. Then I'm going to log into a OneClick domain where AAA is activated but there are no custom settings. I will also look at what mandatory multi-factor authentication entails. We'll look at the password reset process, both when a user wants to voluntarily change their password and also if the practice has set mandatory password expiry. AAA also has what we call recovery codes, which a user can download and save to their computer in case they don't have access to their MFA device. I will demonstrate the use of these recovery codes later in the video. So let's get on with the demonstration. So as with the other videos where I pretended to be a client, I'm using mailinator.com to receive emails on behalf of clients. Mailinator.com is a free email service where emails last for 2 hours and then are automatically deleted. The first client that I've activated is Colin Meads, and I'm going to log into Colin Meads' email address, colinmeads@mailinator.com, and I see I have a OneClick activation email from my accounting firm, Accountants R Us. I click on the email and I'll scroll down and it's an email from the accountant saying, "Dear Colin, please click here to activate your OneClick account." So in this scenario, the accounting practice isn't using AAA, and I just want to run through and activate my account as if I'm a client and then show you the login and logout process without AAA. So firstly, to activate my account, I click on the link and I'm taken to my activation screen. A couple of things to point out. Firstly, the URL mcchesney.accountantspace.co.uk. The first part is the practice's name or the domain that they have chosen for the OneClick account. And secondly, at a practice level, the practice can decide whether they use SMS authentication for when the client activates their account, and if they choose not to, or if they choose to use SMS authentication but they don't have a mobile phone number recorded for the client will need to know their account number as their activation ID. So Colin Meads knows that his account number is CM01. We'll type that in as activation ID and click OK. And then he's prompted to enter his password or create a password. Click continue. And then if the practice has security questions turned on, he'll be required to select and enter his security questions. Select that and that as the two questions. And McDonald's is favourite restaurant, Happy Birthday is a favourite song, and hit OK. And then the client is logged into OneClick, presented with a tutorial screen for the first login. We'll close that, and then they can use the OneClick functionality. I'm going to log out as that client now, and that's simply click on the logout button. And this here is the login screen once they've activated in future. So again, is the domain.accountantspace.co.uk. The client would normally click on a link in an email notification that tells them they've got a new message to view, and that would take them to this screen, but potentially they could save that as their shortcut for logging into OneClick in the future. Logging in is straightforward. Simply just put in the username, which is the email address, and password, and log in. So that's activating an account, logging in and logging out without AAA enabled for that practice. One other thing worth pointing out is that in all cases the process is the same for employees and for clients. So now we'll log out of this client, and now I'm a client of a practice who has AAA enabled, but only with the basic AAA functionality, no mandatory MFA and no mandatory change of password. I received the activation email. The difference once AAA is enabled is the activation email could have up to 2 links. The first one is to activate their account, and the second one is to log in after activation. Some practices may choose to delete this second line altogether, figuring that the next time that they need to log into OneClick is when the client is sent a message and receives a notification email, and that is when they would click on the link to log in. Entirely up to the practice how they customise the email, as long as it has the activation link in it. So the client will click on the activation link, and rather than seeing the screen we saw a few moments ago, they'll see a pre-populated screen showing the client's name and email address. If this is an employee activating their OneClick account rather than a client, the first name and last name will be blank. These details come from CCH Central, but the client can change their first name and last name if necessary. They can't change their email address because the email address is their username, and that can only be changed from within CCH Central. So the client will then enter their password that they want for CCH OneClick. When the client clicks here, firstly they'll see a message explaining about password complexity. They can click on more information if they like. That will give them a little bit more information that will help them decide on what their password should be. We'll click back and we'll enter our password. And repeat the password. And then we'll scroll down. We have to enter a captcha code to confirm that we're a human being. And click continue. We entered the wrong captcha code. Let's try again. And then we see this screen saying that we've got an email waiting to confirm our activation. One thing I didn't point out is that the URL, rather than being the accounting practices domain.accountantspace, is logon.walterscluercloud.com. This is because the AAA login screen is a separate product to OneClick. As I mentioned, it can be used for all Walters Kluwer Cloud products. Anyway, let's go back to our email and receive the activation confirmation. Back to inbox. The subject here contains the domain of the OneClick account that's just been activated. In this case it's RM AAA. In the case of your clients, it will be whatever you've chosen as your OneClick domain. Click on that email, read through the email and click on Activate Now. One other thing worth pointing out before we do that is the sign off at the bottom can also be customised based on your requirements. Again, that's something that we do at the Walters Kluwer end, so you need to let us know what you want that sign off to say. I'll click Activate Now, and now I see a screen here where I can optionally choose whether I want to activate MFA or not. In this case I'm going to say no, because in a few moments I'm going to pretend to be another client who is activating as a client of a practice who has mandatory MFA, and rather than repeating myself, we'll look at configuration of MFA at that stage. So I'll say no thanks, and I'm then taken to this screen here where I'll log into CCH OneClick. One thing worth pointing out is that this is the login screen for AAA enabled practices who do not have MFA enabled as mandatory. If a practice does have MFA set as mandatory, the screen is exactly the same, except that the image on the right is not displayed, and the options for logging in via Facebook, Twitter, etc. are also hidden. So I'm now going to log in as my client, and then I'm logged in for the first time. I see the tutorial, which I'll close, and there's my OneClick homepage. Logging out is a straightforward process. Just click on the logout button up the top right, and I'm returned to the login screen. So now I'm going to pretend to be Dan Carter, a client of a practice that has optional multi-factor authentication, but will choose to activate multi-factor authentication as part of the setup. So firstly, let's click on the invitation email, and then click on the link to activate the account. As before, details are pre-populated, so all we need to do is go through and enter our password. Scroll down to the bottom and enter the captcha code. And Dan has been sent a new email to say that his account has been activated and to confirm activation. Go back to the mailbox. And here's the confirmation email. We'll click on that. Scroll down and click on Activate Now, and this time the client says they want to activate MFA. So we'll click Configure MFA. They're presented with this screen. They can choose from here one or all three of these options for multi-factor authentication. So firstly, they can choose that they want to receive a code via an authentication app. If we click More Information, it will tell us a little bit about the options. For instance, Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator are two possible apps that they might choose to use. We'll close that tab. Or SMS, mobile phone, or email. So let's initially say we're going to configure email. So we'll click Configure. The email address that is used for multi-factor authentication doesn't have to be the same email address as used for the username for that particular person. They might decide they want to receive the code to a different email address than the one they use for their logon purposes. In this case, we want to use the same one. And we're then told that we've been sent a code via email, so we'll go back to the mailbox again. Here's our verification code. Click on that, and we'll just copy that and paste it into here, and that's just to confirm that the email address we entered is actually a valid email address that we have access to. Click Next. Now we're presented with a screen about recovery codes. Recovery codes are unique to the user and can be used when, for whatever reason, the user is unable to access the device that would give them the multi-factor authentication code. So I'm going to be explaining that a little bit further soon. Let's just download those for the moment. So we'll click Download. Downloads a text file which contains all those codes. So you would then save that somewhere in case you need that in the future, but for my purposes I'm just going to move that onto my other monitor, and we'll come back to it in a little bit, and then I'm going to hit Next. On this screen here I can choose whether I want to always be prompted for entering a multi-factor authentication code or only when required by the software. If the practice had set up mandatory MFA at a one-click level, then it wouldn't matter what option the user chose because they would always be prompted. In this case, Dan, the client, is choosing that he always wants to be prompted when he logs on. He'll click Finish, and he has logged into OneClick for the first time, seeing the tutorial. Close that. So the next time that Dan Carton needs to log into OneClick is when he receives an email notification from his accountant to say that he has a message. So we're in Dan's email box. We click on the email, and this email is based on a customizable template that tells Dan he's got a message to review and can he click here to log in. So we click on the link, and he's presented with the login screen for AAA. So log in by entering the email address and password, and the user is asked to enter the authentication code that they have just received via the selected option, in this case via email. So Dan goes back to his email, he has an account verification code, clicks on that, copies that, pastes it into the field provided, clicks Continue. And Dan is now logged into OneClick, and in doing that he thinks, well, one day I might not have access to my email when I need to log in, so he decides to go into My Login Preferences, and he scrolls down and he decides, as well as email, he's going to configure SMS as the second MFA option. So he clicks on Edit, enters his mobile phone number, and clicks Next. And just like when he configured email as an MFA option, he's asked to enter a code to verify that the mobile number he gave is his. So he enters the code and clicks Save. And now we see that we've got two options for MFA configured. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click back, we're going to log out, and then we're going to log back in, and we'll see the difference when you have multiple options for MFA selected. So let's log in again, and at this stage he is then given the option of saying, send me a text message to my mobile phone number, send me an email to my email with the code. He'll select one of those two options, enter the MFA code, and then log into OneClick as per normal. But what if by chance he didn't have access to either of those options? That is where the recovery codes come in. So we click on Use Recovery Code, and it says here type one of your recovery codes. Now you remember a moment ago I saved this text file here, so I can grab that first of those recovery codes, copy that, paste that into here and hit continue, and I'm logged in just as if I had an MFA code. Now one thing worth pointing out there with recovery codes is each recovery code can only be used once. The user at any time can go and regenerate new recovery codes by going to My Login Preferences, scrolling down to the bottom, click Show Recovery Codes, and then Generate New Recovery Codes. The message says that if you generate new recovery codes, you won't be able to use the old ones. We'll say Generate New Recovery Codes, and then download the new codes, save them somewhere, and then we click back to get out of that screen, back to get to the OneClick main page. And then while we're here and looking at my recovery codes, one last thing worth looking at, if I click My Login Preferences one more time, the user also has the option to change their password here. So let's go and change our password. We need to put in our password that we already have, and then we can change the password to whatever we want as a new password. So we're going to put in something different. In this case, the user decides that they're going to use their surname followed by their date of birth. They hit change password, and they are told that their new password cannot contain part of their name or their email address. So we'll try something different. And this time I accidentally entered two different passwords. I've been told that they have to be the same. So let's go and give it another shot. And this time I'm told my password is too similar to the previous password. AAA won't let you use a similar password to one previously used. It also will not let you use a password that has previously been used within the last 6 months. So we've got one other idea what we're going to use for our password. And it says here that my password wasn't changed because somehow during all the attempts to change my password I lost my current password at the top here. So let's just re-enter that. And this time I have been successful. When I'm finished, just hit back, and now I will log out. So next, I'm David Kirk, a client of an accounting practice that has AAA plus mandatory MFA. So what I'm going to do is click on my email to activate my account. As we've already seen, my details are pre-populated. All I need to do is enter my password, enter the captcha code, continue, receive the confirmation email, click on the new email there, activate now. Now the difference is because MFA is mandatory, if the user decides they don't want to configure MFA, which is what I'm going to do, I say no thanks, I'm told that I have to activate MFA before I can continue. So in this case I will then click this button to activate MFA. I'll run through the process of activating MFA. I'll choose email, my email address, I'll receive the code, copy and paste, click next on this, and it doesn't matter what option I choose here, because MFA is mandatory I am going to always be prompted to enter my MFA code. So I'll just click finish, and as we've already seen I can configure multiple options if I want for MFA. I'll just click back on this. I'll now receive a new code to log in for the first time. And I've received both an email saying my multi-factor authentication has been enabled, and then my verification code here, which I'll click on, copy and paste that, paste it into there, and I'm now logged into OneClick for the first time, showing the tutorial, which I'll close, and now I'm on my home page. One of the optional features of AAA is mandatory password expiry. This means that a practice can decide that they want all of their OneClick users to be forced to change their password after a specific amount of time. This might be a number of days, weeks, months, or years. In this example, I am an employee of an accounting practice who has mandatory password expiry enabled. This particular practice also has mandatory MFA, which is why we see this particular login screen. So the employer will enter their login details, and if it's time to change their password, they'll be prompted with this screen. They'll enter the old password, and then they'll enter their new password. This employee then has MFA, so on my other monitor I'll grab my MFA code, and now I'm logged into the employee's workspace within OneClick with my new password. One other feature I would like to show you is the recover password option. So let's pretend I'm the user Brian Blood. So I'm going to type in my username, and then I've just realised I can't remember my password. So what we do is we click recover password, but because I know I'm going to be asked to enter my email address again, I'm just going to copy that now just to save me retyping it. Click on recover password, and I put in my email address and click send. Now this will then send me a link to reset my password. So I'll click that, I'll click back. Doesn't really matter whether I do that. I now need to go to my email, so I'll go back to Mailinator, type in my email address, and I have a recover password email from the OneClick domain that I'm looking to log into. Click on that, read the email, click on recover password. It opens up a new tab where I can put in my new password. Once again, I have the option to click more information if I want to. I won't bother doing that. And I've decided that my new password is going to be this. Send. My password's been changed, I can click back. I'm then sent my MFA code as per normal. I'll go back to my email. I have a notification email here saying that my password's been changed, and now my MFA code has arrived. Click on that, copy my MFA code, and then I'm logged into OneClick. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to activate AAA for OneClick, please log a support ticket and we will contact you to discuss further. Thank you.